this afternoon. It is Sunday. The Bears just lost, and we are alive and well, watching more football, I'm sure, as you listen to this post-game breakdown. Look, I gotta be honest with you guys, okay? I expected to jump on this podcast live reaction thing and immediately, I don't know, start going off, be really upset, start, I don't know, whining, venting emotion. But I basically tweeted through it and got out a whole bunch of different thoughts that you can go look at on Twitter. And now I'm ready for a much more measured post game. I don't know how long it'll be. It's just me today, but I gotta tell you, I end up feeling okay. It's weird, right? We get the opposite game of the Titans game, I would argue, where in the Titans game, the only reason the Bears were able to score any points at all was because they were running the ball. At least it felt like a little better than on today or than in today's game. And they steal some points off of a couple of nasty plays from Will Levis and the Titans. But suddenly the Bears can't get out of their own way in a road game against the Colts today. They shut Anthony Richardson down altogether, catch a couple breaks from the officials, and they still can't stop the run when it counts. The offense can't find a way to get into the end zone any sooner than the fourth quarter, and yet Caleb Williams is ripping balls over the middle of the field. He's making Cole Kmet come to life. Roma Dunze found his stride today. I'd still love to see a little more from DJ Moore, but we can save that conversation for later. It's a mixed bag to walk away with today. I mean, like Jordan's saying, I can't help but look at some of this and see from a win-loss perspective, the Vikings are doing much more with less. How long will it take Chicago to catch what feels like the rest of the division in terms of doing something wins-loss wise? And at what point is Flus going to outrun the allegations of being the sixth best head coach in his own division, if you ask me? That may sound like I'm catering to Jordan, who's now a Vikings fan, but we got to be able to look this thing in the eye. It is awesome news that Caleb Williams comes out today, and I would say the stat line is a little more reflective of the way that he played. Made some stupid mistakes, especially that throw to the flat. But as far as what we saw from him going forward into the future, he was, I thought, very good on third down, manipulated a couple of solid defensive pass interferences early, was pretty much the only reason the Bears were able to move the ball at all. Say what you will about the Colts defense not being particularly great. So a lot of encouraging stuff from the young signal caller, but boy, howdy, how long are the Bears going to run the ball this badly? I mean, especially given that you can tell Shane Waldron thought they were going to be able to run a couple more bootlegs, a couple more end arounds, a couple more wide toss runs, and they haven't been able to do any of that because defenses are just sitting outside the numbers and outside the tackles, waiting for the Bears to do anything outside because they're not convinced that the Bears can drop back pass or run up the middle. One of those things definitely true. One of those things maybe not so much. At least Caleb is throwing the ball well, but boy, they cannot run the ball just about at all between the tackles. And it is pretty miserable to watch. But anyways, that's the thing, Jarrell. I feel pretty similarly. I mean, at the time, I felt like keeping Flus made some sense. At least if you were going to keep Flus, you needed to see him go get a tenured OC like Waldron. And the whole ship feels like it's falling apart right now. The bad challenges last week, the timeout thing this week, the fact, it's funny, Jarrell, there are going to be plenty of people that are going to point to Flus and they're going to say, well, what do you think about the timeout thing? And I actually think the fact that the Bears made the Colts one-dimensional, and as soon as the Colts committed to an extreme ground attack, they just bullied the Bears. That is a bigger concern to me, personally. And maybe you say, well, at least the Colts offensive line is good. And part of me looks back and says, how many at leasts do we need? At some point, wouldn't you hope, and I really do mean this, that a rookie quarterback that just got asked to throw the ball 52 times might get just enough help from his defense to where we can at least stop them in the late dregs of the game or hold them to a field goal on the sudden change. Look, I get it. there is an element of this that's cope. But we're talking about the defensive head coach's baby here, his defense, which he's spent more than a couple of draft picks bolstering across the secondary and the defensive line. But I don't know. I can't help but look at it and say, as sad as this sounds, you got 16 points from your offense. I think you could have had more if Cairo Santos can hit a 56-yarder, which shocks me that he didn't have the leg for that, but that's a separate conversation. Or you get some points out of the drive that they end up going option on 4th and inches, which is its own problem. And then hopefully you're able to win the ball game. But as far as some developmental pieces go, yeah, there's things to look forward to there, but I tend to doubt you came into the 2024 season just wanting to watch development because we've been here for a while. If you did, I really do think you saw some things that are exciting. But Vegeta, it's funny, you mentioned, bro, the defense was tired af. Are you sure? I mean, they only defended 54 plays compared to the Colts defense, who defended close to 80. I understand the thought that the defense was tired, but realistically, they hadn't been on the field for that long. And if memory serves, the Bears, after the Colts, now I'm putting words together. After the Colts had just scored a touchdown on a long rushing drive, the Bears then gave the ball back to the Colts, who gave the ball back to the Bears, who then, as memory serves, led a long drive. Or maybe actually, now that I think about it, Bears long drive, Colts long drive, extended by the penalty, which is its own separate conversation. Then I believe Bears get the ball back, and they gave it up quickly off the penalty or off the sack fumble, which gets scored on. Then Bears long drive, then Colts get the rushing yards. So while I agree in principle that normally you'd look at that and say, well, the Bears defense was tired, I don't know that they were that tired. At least they were as tired as the offense should be across from them. But that's just my take. Anyways, let me see. Looking through the comment section because we'll start the podcast part here soon. I'll do a quick post game by myself. But at the very least, when I watch this game, I think Caleb's ability to throw over the middle of the field in some of these third down situations is awesome. I think that the Bears receiver needs is accelerating Rome Odunze's development, and for better or for worse, I'm going to choose to see that as a positive. I still see Rome making mental mistakes across the field, but 112 yards speaks for itself. He's getting open. With that kind of separation, you're going to get some of those third down plays that we saw in the fourth quarter, as well as the touchdown catch. And I say, when it comes to taking the good with the bad, that's a lot of good. That's a lot of good and something to be excited about, because if Rome Odunze asserts himself as a potential wide receiver one candidate while DJ Moore slots in as a weapon behind him or aside him, I don't care. The wide receiver one conversation to me is a pretty tired thing. Then that's good for the Bears offense going forward. I just wish it could show up a little sooner. I mean, 55 is your number for today. 55 rushing yards from non-quarterbacks on 27 carries. I hate to use words like that's not going to get it done, but it's not. And so I think it's tough to watch, but I loved the fact that when it came to Caleb Williams, we saw him hit a deep shot. We saw him hit a long strike to Rome. We saw him make a play downfield, 2 plays if you count the holding, where he worked out of the pocket and fired a dart over the middle. He was moving the ball. And then the Bears finally get into the red zone. Gosh, they finally get into and goal, and they instead choose to hand it off 4 straight times, and the Bears fail. I have yet to see a drive, by the way, and maybe you can remind me of one, but I have yet to see a drive where the Bears handed it off 3 times in a row and got a first down. They keep trying to do this, but best case scenario, I think it took them 4 downs to get a first down running the ball at one point, and you have to start to wonder, okay, how much of this is a talent problem? I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that the Bears offensive line is the most talented in football, but there are teams that are running it for plenty more than 2 yards per carry, and it's not that hard to run against some of the light boxes that I'm seeing Chicago get. So past a certain point, OC, offensive line, and certainly the running backs have to own just how poor this is. I mean, it's bad, but that's a separate question. Seriously. It's not a question you or I are going to be able to answer. And I'm frankly tired, y'all, of sitting on podcasts and film reviews just like these, hitting the point around September where I sit here and wonder, do the Bears just need more talent? Because, yeah, every team could use more talent. But this kind of a run game in these conditions, I mean, we're acting like our offensive line is at the level of the Rams, and it isn't. Not in investment and not in talent level. You should be able to get more rushing yards than this. Luke Getsy did, but it's a tough conversation that I don't have great answers to right now. I'll have to sit around and think about it. I'm serious. And it's funny, obvious. I'll tell you, I don't know if the defense was particularly amazing to me. Maybe I've got high standards or something, but I thought Anthony Richardson basically gifted them the ball 3 times. I don't understand the referee's decision, by the way, to call that one forward progress that felt like a gift to a young quarterback when later in the game, running back stacked up takes 2 steps backwards. They let the Colts pile in and push that ball over the goal line. That ought to have been an interception, if you ask me. Maybe a fumble, but I'd just call it an interception because the ball didn't hit the ground. Whatever. Seriously. Like, past a certain point, we're litigating little things, and I personally don't like doing that. But that's my bent. I don't know what yours is. Let me see. Aztag, you mentioned wish we had a better result today. Is it hopeful to take away Caleb's yards thrown as a positive, or was it just considered to be junk yards? The Bears were never out of that game. Like, the Bears were never so far down that I think those were garbage yards. In my opinion, Aztag, we do this weird dance in the NFL sometimes where we consider something a garbage time performance, and then suddenly that player comes back and wins a game, and we say, whoa, it was out of nowhere. So if you ask me, you have to look and call something garbage time when win probability gets below like 5%. And I'd be blown away if any win probability metric had them below that threshold, given they were 2 scores down and theoretically a score away for most of that period. Now, I think the more exciting thing than just Caleb's raw passing yards, because hey, here's the thing. His passing yards were a little inflated by a Hail Mary that only barely didn't get into the end zone, but that's not exactly great quarterbacking. But also a couple of the DPIs get taken away from him off the stat sheet, and there were a couple of those that were fairly big gainers, so kind of all comes out in the wash. I would tell you that the Bears turned to Caleb Williams as their only source of offense, and they had, somebody fact check me on this, because they almost had more yard, or I know they had the most yardage that they had all season, but they may have had more yardage than, it's not going to be more yardage than the last 2 games combined, but it's closer than you'd think. But so what was tough for me, to be honest with you, is Anthony Richardson throws an interception on a play with a wide open player. That's to Michael Pittman. He throws another interception on a tip ball that I don't know what he's looking for. He has at least 3 or 4 misses on 3rd down where guys were open. The ball just got sprayed. It was not a great quarterbacking performance from Anthony Richardson, and I didn't think that he brought enough in the run game today to really warrant us saying, well, yeah, you give and take with his accuracy, but at least you got blank. You didn't get that either. So to me, it was exactly the defensive day that I predicted, which is not to brag or whatever. It's more like you can't be red hot on defense forever. And especially on the road at noon, a lot of teams just don't always bring it. And that was what you got today. A defensive, let's call it middle of the road performance. I would have loved for the offense to have rose up and won the game anyways. But you could argue Caleb sure tried. The run game didn't bring it. And that special teams penalty and a burn timeout on the touchdown was enough to just about doom the Bears. I will say, I really will. Maybe I'm the crazy one. You guys tell me in the comments, but the Bears don't have a kicker that can attempt and hit a 65-yarder, or at least attempt one. The Bears don't have a kicker that has 56 yards of leg. The rest of the NFL has guys that are coming in out of nowhere, coming in from international leagues, soccer clubs, etc., etc., etc. The XFL, for crying out loud, banging down 60-yarders like they aren't anything, but whatever. Like, that's just me complaining about potential lost points on the board. At the end of the day, the offense comes down to what you probably think it does. It comes down to a 4th down decision to not a 4th down, an end zone decision to not let Caleb throw the ball in that first set that I cannot help but think is at least a little coaching led, a little conservative, feels very 200 club, and might have undid the Bears today. But I don't know. That there's a piece of this where we're never going to know because you have to be inside the room. But I'll tell you, I thought Caleb was one of the best players on their offense today, which is not a necessarily glowing review of Caleb Williams. It's more an indictment on the offensive line in the run game, the general performance of the running backs. Y'all, let's be real here. Roschon Johnson carried the ball at a below NFL good, or what would you call it? The Mendoza line? Like, what do you say is the NFL's word for a running back who clicks in a day with less than 4 yards a carry? Because I've always considered 4 yards a carry to be the NFL's minimum standard for a running back most of the time. You hit 4.5, you're probably a player. You hit 5, you're a player, but you're expected to click out 4 at the very least. And then all of a sudden, Roschon Johnson runs for 3.8 today, and it felt like he was gashing the Colts, which he wasn't. But man, it felt like it because nobody else was running the ball for anything. Khalil Herbert couldn't create any lanes. DeAndre Swift sure couldn't find any. It was an experience watching this Bears team try to run the ball. But so, Ravi, you got plenty of, or I really believe that there's plenty of good to see in this game if you're looking at it from a Rorschach perspective. But I got to be real with you guys. Okay? Let's take a deep breath. Hear me out as I say this. Know that I'm not stoked about it either. I'm just looking this schedule in the face. Okay? I can't help but look and see a schedule where what we hoped would be a defense leading and rushing attack subsidized potential 9-8, even 10-7 season. Suddenly the Panthers look like they could be medium spicy with Andy Dalton leading them. The Cardinals do not look like an easy game. The Patriots do not look like an easy game. The Vikings look like anything but easy right now, especially with Darnold playing the ball that he is. Then you keep going through this. The Packers can't be stopped. Malik Willis, Jordan Love, doesn't really matter. The Packers look great. The Lions are going to be fine. They may be the regression candidate that Nick and I have talked about probably a little too often because I feel like we're hitting that nail a little too hard. But they look better than us right now, which is not me by any stretch of the imagination trying to be excited. It's more me looking down the barrel of what might be a 7-10 season, which I don't love, right? I can't help but watch this team and think this Bears team is not as far along as we wanted them to be. I think offensive line play, it has a lot to do with that. I think the state of the running back room has a lot to do with that. But I can't help looking and thinking, okay, you got a rookie quarterback this year. If you end up playing decent ball, here's my question, okay? Here's what I would love to ask you guys. And I'm seriously asking, all right? What is your watermark? What is your watermark for a potential coaching change? I am going to be honest. I don't care, okay? I'm a Bears commenter. I feel like we keep running head coaches around and around and around in circles. Like, I'm exhausted of the whole process. I kind of want to sit back and just watch football games and cheer for the Bears in close games. That's what I want for. I'm not looking to talk about losses. I'm not looking to talk about anything. It's a long season. Plenty can go right. But I will at least look for this, or look through this and ask you guys, what's the watermark? Like, is it 7-10? Is 8-9 good enough? Does it need to be 6-11? What's the win loss where if it's not good, or what is that win loss where you potentially make change? But Aztag, I think 5-12, 6-11 is intense. I mean, nothing's out of the question right now, but you lose 2 games in a row, people are always going to start freaking out. But so I more just want to beg the question on how safe is Flus in your opinion, and what do you think would need to happen for the Bears to potentially look to switch things up? asking because at least right now, if the Bears can't beat this Colts team on a day like that, that's tough. Like Jibby mentions, we're doing the Bears coaching thing 3 games into the season. This is so funny. And I look back and I say, yeah, doesn't feel super funny to me because I don't think the Colts played well enough to win. I don't. But it's if you can't win on a day like that, then yikes. That's at least how I see it. TB, I think it's weird because you mentioned if you think Caleb played well, then I don't know, then you like Jameis Winston. I think that was what you said. And I would look at it and I would say the problem is that football's a pretty relative game. And so I did not think Caleb played amazing. I think that it's way easy to overhype this with like using his raw numbers on 52 pass attempts. But if you can remember it, there was a game in Burrow's rookie season where Burrow threw for 300 yards on about 60 passes with a five yards per attempt, I think. Over the course of that game, I think it was a Monday night game, and everybody loved it because Burrow cracked 300 yards. And I'm pretty sure I can't remember honestly if he threw any picks or not. Point being that I think Caleb played a game that was mistake ridden. I think he sure learned a lot of lessons. I think he got asked to carry too much weight in this game, but he delivered at least some movement downfield. The Bears' utter ineptitude on second down never ceases to amaze me this season, as right now I believe they're converting, per Robert Mays, 8.5 of their second downs into first down, and that is 1/2 of the already league worst rate by the Bryce Young-led Carolina Panthers, who I'm sure are bringing that number up right now as they start Andy Dalton. But I don't know, it's wild to me. It is wild to me that you've got people, whether it's in social media comments, whether it's in the comment section right here, that are attempting to act like this is a Caleb Williams problem, to be honest with you, when the Bears, anytime they don't have Caleb Williams drop back, are completely inept on offense and might be one of the worst offenses in the league. So as much as you'd want to put this on the quarterback, I really don't think you can. You could put the Titans game on the quarterback. Maybe you want to pinch the quarterback a little with the Texans game. But this game, I thought Caleb did more good than bad. Way more good than bad. He was pretty much the only way that they could convert a third down. He was the only way they got in the end zone. He was the only way they got down the field. I don't know what else you want. But that's the nature of playing quarterback. That's how it is. But so, anyways, I am going to let's go ahead and get this thing rolling, if you ask me. But oh, wait a minute, I got the wrong guy. Sorry, Jay. But so let's see here. Let's see. Somebody mentions play calls. I don't think there was any garbage time. Anything is going to show you that, to be honest with you. Like, that's just calling it as it is. That's not it's not how garbage time works. But whatever. Let's see. That's the other thing, Alex. I'm reading the comment section right now. Alex mentions the people I've seen who said Caleb played horrible already didn't like him in the first place. Plus, Alex, there are plenty of people who hear the story of threw 2 picks, then threw 2 touchdowns, and if they already didn't like him, they're going to say, oh, so he threw the 2 touchdowns in garbage time, and it wasn't really garbage time. I mean, one brought them back into 1 score, the next brought them back into 1 score. That's not garbage time, especially in a game like football. I mean, did we watch the Baylor-Colorado game last night? Chances are nobody in here did, right? But that's football for you. You got to keep making as many plays as you can. You can't change the scoreboard. But I've come around to that. That's something that I usually call garbage time, basically like a 2 or 3 score lead with 5 to 8 minutes remaining. But that's my 2 cents. Jordan asks, do we think we re-sign Tevin Jenkins at this rate? I don't know, man. TB, I disagree with you personally. I think Caleb threw major third down balls all up and down the yard, pretty much through the fourth quarter. I'm not trying to tell you that I think he was spectacular. He certainly made mistakes. The whole offense did. But I think that, but you mentioned constantly throwing deep on third and manageables. He's the only one who was converting any third downs. Jason mentions he gave it away 3 times. The throw to the flat was awful. I liked the throw to Rome. I think that's a catchable ball. Good play by the DB. We're definitely forcing it into a window that's unnecessary, but he's a rookie. I expect these kinds of things. And then the strip sack fumble. I am not an offensive protection guy, but that was just a shame, if you ask me. A strip sack fumble was coming eventually. It comes for every rookie quarterback eventually. It's like the ultimate rookie Grim Reaper. They're all going to have a strip sack fumble at some point. But with him loading up deep in a situation like that, it would have been awesome to see him get the pass off. That's life. But so the garbage team thing is definitely that's definitely a well worthy critique. But I would also point out that, like, I don't know, what do you want, right? Like, is the aim here that you wanted him to throw 450 yards? Is the aim here that you wanted him to win? I get the wanting to win, but why point at the quarterback who broke a broke a Bears passing record? And also, y'all, for crying out loud, I feel like I'm suddenly having to play defense here. At what point did we ever think it was okay to give a rookie quarterback 52 passing attempts? That strips out the sacks. And so now, if we count the sacks, you're talking about 56 passing attempts. Why are we asking a rookie to do that? Well, we're asking him to do that because the run game didn't work. But I mean, now is it the quarterback's fault that the run game isn't working? You tell me. Past a certain point, maybe I'm just too optimistic or something. Such is life as a Bears fan. We don't get nearly anything, but I can't help looking at this. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, he is the quarterback who threw it 60 times, but I don't know, man. TB, I think you're going to end up looking at this. In saying that you think Caleb played fine on the All-22. I think most people are. If you're like I was, you were mostly disappointed with Caleb, especially in the first half, because despite 100 yards passing, the Bears had 0 points on the scoreboard. But that's life in football. Apparently, it's life in Chicago, at the very least. For everybody else, you get a little more. But CJ Stroud goes 215, 1 touchdown, 2 picks today against the Vikings. And at this rate, the Bears are going to get smoked by that Vikings team. But I don't know. I think I understand the record thing. I understand doom and gloom. I get it. But I think that this is a week for perspective, whether we like it or not, okay? In my opinion, I think that if you wanted the Bears to be really good this year, well, they don't look very good this year. Why don't they look very good this year? A lot of reasons. The rookie quarterback looks like a rookie. The running game and the offensive coordinator kind of look like shams. The rookie wide receiver looks like a rookie. Keenan Allen got hurt immediately. Now they're hoping he'll practice next week. That sounds like bad news to me. The defense looks really good sometimes, and then every once in a while, it seems to just lose itself and gives up massive gashes in the run game. We saw that against the Titans. We saw that against the Colts today. If we see it against, I don't know about the Rams. The Rams are so hurt. To me, the Rams are the fake football team, right? But I mean, I guess they're playing the 49ers. I don't know. They were playing the 49ers a little tighter a little while ago. But that's the other thing, Jay Sanders. You mentioned that the Bears do this every year with Eberflus, and that's sort of where I'm leading, right? It's past a certain point. Are the Bears limited by Eberflus as their head coach? Well, they might be. If they are limited by Eberflus as their head coach, then we are where we are. And there's nothing I'm going to do about it. There's nothing you're going to do about it. But I think blaming the quarterback doesn't fix the fact that whenever he hands the ball off, the Bears waste it down. Sometimes it's worse. Losing 10 yards on 4th and 1, I know nobody cares. But to me, that shows just how hopeless the Bears' rushing attack has been. Riley mentioned, should we be worried about Waldron? The offense seems concerning. It was supposed to be a big upgrade. I don't know how you could not be worried about how you could not be worried about Waldron right now. The inability to call a successful run game with basically all of the players that Luke Getsy called a successful run game with, sans Justin Fields, seems to me like a major problem when Tyson Bagent was running the ball well. Even Tyson Bagent in the game, the Bears were running the ball just fine, and Caleb Williams should at least be as good an athlete as Tyson Bagent. Then Kaiser mentions, hey, they were 0-3 last year. Record-wise, it could be worse. Definitely true. Alex mentions, Alex talks about a little bit about CJ Stroud. I'm with you, Ravi, on I wish that the Bears had won this game, but I've seen worse, to be honest with you. I've seen much more hopeless. I would have thought that given the game situation, that Caleb would have played worse. So I think he took another strong step forward. But if you disagree, I don't know. I really don't know. I do feel like there are some people that expected, like TB mentions, horrible fundamentals and situational awareness rather than having successful outcomes of a certain percentage of plays. See, but TB, to me, I think that that's how you judge people is what percentage of plays were you able to play make on? And if you're higher than expected, then you did well. If you're talking about deep shot stuff, if we watch the all 22 and those manageable options weren't there, then what? Is it a play call problem or is it a quarterback problem? Maybe there's a little of both. I'm not trying to imply that I think Caleb was perfect. That's sort of my issue, I guess, is I'm sitting here in front of the camera feeling like I'm having to over defend a rookie playing like a rookie. And I would look at you and say that the rookie quarterback being this important to the offense's ecosystem is a big problem, given that over the last 2 years, the Bears could play around the quarterback and have at least some success. I mean, we're talking create just about any points, but I don't know. Joe Calzano mentions, if you could swap Waldron for Getsy today, do you do it? I would give it more thought than you think, because I thought Getsy's run design was awesome, and I'd be interested to see at least whether he would keep some of those run designs given the structure that he used to call plays with the Bears. And I mean, I don't know. I just can't tell if that's reactionary or not, but also this looks like Nagy again. I mean, I'm really struggling to not see Nagy when I'm watching this passing attack. And sure, there are some pieces of it that are getting executed pretty well. Like on 3rd and 9, we keep managing to find Cole Kmet. I'm okay with that. I love the fact that the Bears are finding a way to pass the ball on 3rd down, but we're wasting 2nd down, which reminds me of 2020 and 2021, and that's not in a good way. That's not in a good way at all. I mean, Jimmy mentions we lose 4 yards on every single outside run. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Past a certain point, it's exhausting, to be honest, because I don't know how you're supposed to win long-term on offense if here's the biggest problem that at least I am seeing, right? I'm seeing that the Bears set up, obviously you got your offensive line, and the defense is leaving a massive gap between the linebackers, who are 5 to 7 yards off the ball, and anybody on the interior who's generally stretched pretty wide. Then, whenever the Bears go under center, you've got a 5 down line or a wide 4 that is crashing those edges. These teams are daring the Bears to run it up the middle, just like we talked about on the film stream last week. And the Bears won't do it. Whether or not that's because they don't think they've got a back that can do it, whether they don't think they've got a line that can do it, they're not doing anything to condense the defense. So then we're either working outside the numbers in the pass game, we're working just barely inside the numbers in the pass game, or we're trying to run it on the outside edges. And if you can't do anything, I'm talking if you can't at least click out 3.5 yards per carry on inside zone and duo, that's going to be an issue, if you ask me, because the defense just never condenses, and then you can't run any rollouts. You can't hit the flat for easy yardage. You can't run any of the toss plays that the Bears had success with in the preseason. It's miserable. Like it's bad, but that's at least what I'm seeing. I think Jay Sanders, it's funny because people are going to mention that, oh, well, they called Caleb Williams generational. I think that Caleb Williams in the 3rd quarter looked very good. I think it's hard for me, okay? I'm curious to hear what you guys think. It's hard for me to look at a game like this and not feel like it was one of the best quarterbacked games I've watched in probably about 5 years for Chicago. And this is his 3rd week on the road in a game where you've still got offensive line turmoil and all the other, and we can't run the ball. Like, is it perfect? Of course it's not. Dude ends up with an 88 quarterback rating, and that skips out the sack fumble, which at the end of the day, whether or not I think that Cole Kmet can't get beat around the edge like that, you got to own it if you're the quarterback. That's the nature of playing goalie, right? Goalie comparison to whether it's soccer or the NHL, puck goes in the net, you got to own it. But I also think that Caleb at least gave us something. He gave us a long throw to Roma Dunze. He gave us a sicko throw to DJ Moore. He gave us a different sicko throw to DJ Moore. A couple nice gainers on, or I think some were on first, some were on second. I don't actually think many were on. Anyways, third downs at the end of the game when it seemed like the Bears were intentionally trying to make life hard for their quarterback, where at least it seemed to me that they'd get a decent chunk on first down. They'd just waste a play on second down. And then suddenly it was 3rd and 7. It was 3rd and 4. It was 3rd and 9. It was 3rd and 10. It was 3rd and 8. Caleb save us, and he did. Alongside Cole Kmet, who was a real hero there at the end. Plus, we got some Roma Dunze action. All this stuff, when I say it that way, makes me feel okay. And then I watch, coming out of the 2-minute warning, Jonathan Taylor and the Colts see the Bears bunched up. They run it just outside the tackle to their right. Jack Sanborn pins inside, and suddenly nobody's home. Taylor crunches out a 13-yard gain when that was the literal last thing that could have possibly happened, and the game ends utterly unceremoniously. And I sit here looking back saying, what a daggum shame. I mean, I'm shocked that more people aren't saying that, I guess, that the Bears have their sack fumble and they immediately give up a touchdown. And the Bears endure a nasty penalty on what Matt Eberflus thought was a head bob, and they immediately give up a long touchdown drive. I get it. The defense can't save everything, and we want to make sure that we blame the offense for an offensive problem. But at the same time, we didn't start a rookie thinking that this was going to click amazingly quickly. It's why I keep trying to talk about getting out of September. I mean, for crying out loud, months ago, before I let everybody whip me into a frenzy, I was trying to keep saying things like it won't click until week 8 to 10. It's going to be inconsistent. At least I've tried, but it's frustrating, I think, seeing the way people talk about this team, and I don't think they're holding the defense to the standard that I think they should be held to. I think Anthony Richardson played a woeful game today. You tell me, did Anthony Richardson play well? Because I don't think there's any way that you could say by the fourth quarter, Shane Steichen was ever going to trust Anthony Richardson with the ball in his hands. Okay, so if you've made the Colts one-dimensional, how'd you let him beat you with that one dimension? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the problem here. But I would hope that your defensive head coach, if he can't be in that offensive room, if he can't be part of helping the quarterback grow, at least throw a defense out there that can go get you a game in that situation. And they did against the Texans. Your offense didn't produce. They did it more against the Titans. They won the game for the Bears. So we're not exactly on red alert yet, but this was that nightmare game, if that was something that you were worried about. But I don't know. I can't help but let's see. What are we talking about, Jordan? Let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's no way to say that Caleb is like super careful with the football at this point. I think he throws the ball into tight windows. I don't want to say recklessly, but he's testing just about every window you're going to see. We love it when Josh Allen does it, but he avoids interceptions. And obviously, you got to be able to take care of the football if you're going to try to do it. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a weird spot where I'm being asked to judge a rookie quarterback as if he's a starting NFL quarterback, which he is. And I'd say today was probably like a C+ or something. That's my honest opinion. Maybe a B- if you really want to go there. But the offense didn't work for so long that I would tell you that if Caleb's getting a C+, almost everybody else on the offense is getting much worse marks. But I don't know. I haven't watched the tape. I watched it once live. So if you need an absolute scale, then sure, don't go crowning Caleb yet just because he clicked out a bunch of yardage. But at the same time, I'm not expecting Caleb to look like Josh Allen. I'm not even expecting him to look like Josh Allen in mid-December. But I definitely didn't expect him to be all the way there in September. And so the fact to me that Caleb Williams is being asked to lead this offense exclusively without the help of a run game, worse, with 27 called losses with 27 what are basically wasted downs mixed into the game plan, I think that would be hard on any rookie quarterback. And if that was Bo Nix's situation, I'd say that sucks for Bo Nix. If that was Jaden Daniels' situation, I'd say that sucks for Jaden Daniels. It just happens to be Chicago's. And unfortunately, that's also a trend. Like, people like me have said for a long time that when JT O'Sullivan types say, and unfortunately that is how things work in Chicago, they don't have a tradition of developing quarterbacks. I say, how would you say that? The organization that's in Chicago had nothing to do with all those different quarterback failures, and yet it does keep happening. So there's an element of, oh boy, are we going to be able to protect Caleb from developing bad habits? You can't put the cat back, or you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You're not putting the cat back in the bag. Any talk of benching Caleb Williams for his own safety is ridiculous. We're not doing that, right? But also, are you going to end up with a more Trevor Lawrence like situation where the quarterback decays slowly but surely and ends up being a shell of what anybody hoped he would become? Or is he going to be able to potentially miraculously grow through all of this? I don't know, right? I have no idea. And I couldn't tell you. But it's a darn shame, in my opinion, seeing just how poor the offensive line is in the running game. It's a darn shame seeing how badly they're running the ball. It does take me back to Nagy. There's actually a lot of this offense that takes me back to Nagy. And I am not having fun with that. But at least, today was, I don't know. Did you have fun watching it? I had fun watching it. I made my fun watching it. I didn't like the first quarter, but then once I got into the second quarter, certainly the third and fourth, I thought it was fun football. It wasn't even great defensive football on the Bears side of the ball. It was not fun watching hang on. I should do the stupid podcast thing, to be honest. Anyways, let's do the podcast. We'll do a little more Q&A and then we'll hop. But so let's see. Reading back through it, Alex, I did think Richardson played worse than Levis. Kaiser, I didn't, or let me see, which expectation? Oh, the fact that he didn't click, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I wouldn't have that expectation either. I think that's normal, right? The Bears apparently don't have a running back that's any good, which is not helpful, by the way. I don't know what to do about that because what's the answer? Velus Jones? Trade for somebody? All of those options feel like we're pulling the fire alarm, but the fire alarm might need to be pulled. They gave Roschon an outside zone carry, and he got all the way to the outside edge and then got run out of bounds for a 3-yard gain. Do y'all know how sad I am that a play that I know on film is going to be a potential explosive ended up with the running back getting ushered out of bounds for a 3-yard gain? Like, what a shame that the Bears are going cheap on running back, and it's obvious that they're going cheap on running back. I keep watching Kenneth Walker, etc., across different offenses, and it's like, oh my word. Oh my word. So many running backs see and create so much more. All right, let me look something up real fast. Let's see. He has to do, yeah, Jimmy. Jimmy mentions it's all on Caleb at this point. He has to defy the expectations and grow through this somehow. He calls that saddening, and at least on a game like this, I think it's easy to take that opinion. The good news is, Jib, as well as others, the Bears get as easy a slate on the schedule as they're going to get. I'm gonna warn you, based on the way this team is trending, things could get messy. It's starting around week 11. That stretch where they go Packers, Vikings, Lions. I think they play San Fran in the middle of that. Like Packers, Vikings, Lions, San Fran, Lions, Vikings, Packers, Seahawks. Did I get that? Is that it? That might actually be it. But so, yeah, that stretch, that could get messy. Y'all remember the way that Flus basically rescued himself from the jaws of potentially getting fired because the team and the team went 7-6 down the stretch after starting a woeful 0-4. Well, Flus may get the reverse this season, and I don't know what that would mean. I have no idea. Like, again, you tell me, if you could fire Matt Eberflus and throw the bag at Bobby Slowick or Ben Johnson, would you? I'm not going to give you an answer. I think sometimes it's silly to talk about, but it does feel like, let me see, Valus Jones, but I can't help but look at this and at least beg the question on what's going to happen here. I don't know, because if this continues and the Bears struggle to win the games that we felt like they should have, then what next? Because I don't know how long you can ride Waldron and Flus if the results don't at least get better from last year. like you're mentioning, Kaiser, the expectation was Caleb getting confident and competent by like week 10 or 8 to 10. And I'll tell you, Kaiser, that in my opinion, maybe I'm just being hopeful, Caleb may become competent and confident, or at least closer to it, a little sooner than we anticipated, right? Which is good. We would have expected that would have been a very good thing. But then you go a little further into this and you look at the rest of the way these things are working out. Y'all, I don't have Nick to check me on this, so I can just say it, right? Based on what we thought this Bears season was going to look like and what we told ourselves this Bears offense would do this season, I believe we are looking at nearly the worst case scenario because Gerald Everett looks like a waste of targets every time they every time they try to work the ball to him. DeAndre Swift looks like worse than a waste of carries. Been getting just about nothing at all. I think you could hand the ball to Darrington Evans and get more than the Bears have gotten out of him. Then you keep looking down this thing. You start to say, well, Keenan Allen, one of their big trade acquisitions, he has been hurt and he may stay hurt. He's got the same injury that he had last year, if I've understood it correctly, with plantar fasciitis. And so Ryan Poles said in an interview with Stacey Dales today that they hope they'll be able to see him practice. They hope they'll be able to see him practice. Ooh, I don't love that. So now we're back to Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. Well, at least Rome Odunze is playing well. He certainly had a lot of he certainly had some major success throwing the ball today or catching the ball today, but it's all up and down. He looks very rookie. He's not unlike, I guess you could say, Malik Neighbors in that capacity, where for everything he does right, he does something wrong. And so hopefully the extra reps and the extra targets speed him along. I'll tell you right now, his feet look good. Like Jimmy mentions, to use this. Jimmy mentions, we are so boned, it's crazy. That stretch can destroy Caleb too. Clearly, my stream is coming in a little later than I'd like, but I'll throw this at you that Rome becoming a wide receiver 1 would be a huge win for this organization. Fight me. I mean, I can't help but look at the Bears offense right now and say, if Rome ends up using the time that Keenan was out and ascends to a really solid level, then good. I mean, that's a good problem to, I don't know, but it's a good problem to have, but it's the silver lining at the end of what could be a darker tunnel. But man, I also can't help but look at a lot of the rest of the Bears pieces and say, oh, good. This may take work. The 49ers are in a dogfight with the dadgum Rams. So the Rams may not be all that easy either. A good defensive line against the way the Bears offensive line is playing. It's tough. Jay Sanders, you mentioned Waldron has a 3-year contract. I don't know. It's really never publicized. I would have thought that he would have gotten around a 3-year contract, but I also can't help but look at contract situations like Waldron's and think that maybe they married him up with Matt Eberflus's contract, which would mean theoretically he got a 2-year deal. I also know that coaching contracts are guaranteed, so maybe handing out an offensive coordinator and the rest of the staff contract somehow inhibits the Bears from making decisions at the end of the season. But I'll tell you what, it is a darn shame seeing what so obviously Justin Fields being on the Steelers, I'm paying attention to the Steelers a little more than usual this year. And Mike Tomlin is getting all the juice he possibly can out of that organization. I don't think I think if you traded rosters, Jordan, I don't know if you're still in here. I think if you traded rosters, Bears roster and Bears roster with Vikings roster, you just swapped them. So now Caleb's getting coached by Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell's got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and sure, Keenan, let's say he's still hurt, to work with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's hard to convince me that you wouldn't see a better Vikings team than even the Vikings team we're already seeing. I think they've got some serious dudes. But I also think that if you get into Brian Flores a lot of the tools that Chicago is working with, that you'd get a lot out of him. Maybe I'm coping. Could be coping. But I looked at a pretty piecemeal Vikings defensive line, and they don't look piecemeal right now, do they? Because Brian flores' style of defense is sicko mode. But it's... I've just seen this so many times now. Be honest with you guys, before I get into the one last thing, then I'll record this podcast, then we'll call it. Jay Sanders said probably 3 years ago, Jay Sanders, if you're still listening, mentioned something I can't remember exactly how you said it, but You basically talked about how the Bears are never going to change, right? And at the time, we were talking about a rookie Fields. And here we are a little later, and I can't help but look at this Bears organization and say, well, we need the defense to be that much more consistent, I guess. But whenever the defense doesn't rescue us, we need the quarterback to. Which, when I stare at that, I'm like, that is what I've been saying forever. And if I'm saying it again already in week 3, that's a tough spot to be. Because the sad part is, you look around the NFL and other teams don't deal with this. I mean, they really don't, right? I'm watching the Cardinals. The Cardinals look fun. I'm watching the Rams. The Rams are finding a way. I'm watching the Panthers. They're putting a hurting on a Raiders team that just beat the Ravens, who are smoking the Cowboys. Like, everybody else has their normal NFL experience one way or another, where at least the team looks vaguely like you anticipate. And then you hand the reins over to Chicago, and how dare anybody get excited about them? Mike Greenberg thinking that Justin Fields could win MVP last year. People thinking that the Bears could be an above average six seed ish wild card team. Like, I am having trouble with this Bears organization because they somehow keep coming back to being exactly who they've always been. And I don't really know what to do about it, because as an analyst, it's pretty unbelievable that it's pretty unbelievable that here we are with one of the most talented Bears teams that I've seen in a while, and they don't look very talented. In fact, it took today's showing, which was messy, to get to the point where the offense isn't historically bad. So, I don't know what to tell you when it comes to things like whether the Bears keep or don't keep Matt Eberflus. I'm tired of saying fire the coach, but at the same time, every time the Bears hire the coach, they seem to hire the wrong one. I wanted Shane Waldron because I thought getting a normal offensive coordinator with some experience that was relatively young and came from a hot, like, offensive coaching tree would bring the Bears some stability. They look stably bad, and it's rough watching this. It's rough trying to take this seriously. Because seriously, y'all, I watched 31 other NFL teams where the rules seem to apply. And then you turn on the Bears and you throw it all out because none of it applies. The Chicago Sun-Times, I heard a joke once. The Chicago Sun-Times, the joke was that they're always negative because at the end of the day, if you're negative about the Bears, you're probably right. And of course, when you're a young, fired up fan, of course, when you're a young, fired up fanalist, you're probably pretty positive. Positivity keeps you sane. If you're that negative, you just pick a new team. Literal case in point is in the chat right now. Like, there is a literal case in point about that in the chat right now that is laughing about how he's watching his 3-0 Vikings because he literally picked a different team. The worst case scenario happened, and his rookie quarterback that he picked the new team for tore his ACL, and it doesn't matter because Sam Darnold, a journeyman quarterback, is playing like an MVP under a good offensive ecosystem with enough players to make it work, because that's what good coaching does. They get 2 wins out of Malik Willis, a convincing 2 wins, no less. They'll get Jordan Love back, and the offense will work like normal, and they'll look like kings again, because life's just good in Packerland. I think Detroit is looking like they've got a dogfight for the rest of the division set up in front of them. But unfortunately, the whole division looks an entire 3 steps ahead of Chicago right now, who is battling just to look like the team that Hard Knocks told us they were. And I don't know what you guys want me to say sometimes, to be honest with you, because I would tell you that I think it is exciting watching what the rookie quarterback is doing. But you gotta play 14 more games, for crying out loud. Like, what's going on here? The offense has yet to score more than 16 points in a game. I know these things take time. When you and I, whether you listener, there's a very good chance that if you listen to me at all, you're probably at least medium excited about this Bears season, at least. And when you and I got excited about this Bears season, we got excited about a team that was able to run the ball against just about anybody last year. And there's something to be said for Justin Fields being a big part of that, but they never went over like this, right? But I also can't help but think that when we're watching these rushing performances, when we expected to watch these games, we did not expect to see a rushing attack. Y'all, DeAndre Swift had 0 successful run plays today. I'm talking like according to what they call success percentage, which is calculated on a down and distance thing, right? He had 0 successful carries. Roshan had 3, which was 50% of his totes. Then Khalil Herbert had 2, I think, which was another 30% of his totes. So everybody else was finding success except the guy that they just paid $8 million and lit it on fire. And then Gerald Everett looks like we lit it on fire. I mean, it is hard. Like, I would tell you that the emotional part about watching the Bears right now is the bigger picture. Because the more you know about the Bears' history and the way that that has all worked in Chicago, the more upset I think you're going to get. Like, we're talking about a team, we're talking about an organization that has somehow managed to purport the same season of football. It feels like every single year where we've got something we're fairly obvious about or fairly optimistic about, and then it ends up, I don't know, maybe okay. Usually, honestly, the thing we're excited about ends up pretty bad. Which in this case, I'm just not surprised that as soon as Caleb looks like he might actually be a Bears quarterback that can play, the rest of the team just seems to collapse. And that's not to say the defense is collapsing. I mean, I don't think the defense is playing badly. I just would have hoped that they would have found one more play against an Anthony Richardson-led Colts team that only was doing one thing well, and then they just rode that one thing to enough points to win. You need your offense to score more points than that against the Colts defense. But at the same time, we're talking about an offense that apparently needs its rookie quarterback to throw 52 times just to generate any semblance of offense. So what do you want me to say? What am I supposed to say? I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Because if we're, in my opinion, if we're looking at, well, I don't know. You hit this point where people go, well, you don't really think Caleb played well. And I go, I don't know how I'm supposed to, like, I don't know how on earth I'm supposed to look at this game plan that asked Caleb to do this and say anything other than within the scope of the game plan, I think Caleb delivered more than I would have expected of most rookie quarterbacks, which is all I guess I'm looking at. But, context be damned, I guess. Let's see. Let me see. Gypsy Mike says Jordan caught hell for saying Fields couldn't cut it. If he admits William. Oh no, I gotcha. Are we talking which Jordan? Are we talking about Silvera? I think Jordan thinks. Anyways, Randy says it's time to take the next 5 years seriously and foster an offensive identity and ecosystem. I mean, definitely right. Jay Sanders, Belichick is sure looking correct because whatever the Bears offense did, it didn't work. Alex mentions, I think Caleb could adjust to an OC or a new OC. We're at the point where, like, I don't know, man. Like, seriously. Let's see. I hate reading about the organizational dysfunction stuff because the only way that you're going to separate yourself from that is picking a new team. And obviously the overwhelming majority of us are just not going to go that far. But it's tough. Like, I do sit here and sometimes look forward to every other football game but the Bears game. I also hate games like this for exactly this reason, for different reasons. But anyways, let me do post game real fast, which I guess I kind of just did post game for a while, but I'll do it right here. The Chicago Bears lose a tough one on the road to the Indianapolis Colts, 16 to. I have to look that up. I'm so stupid. Let's see. Bears, Colts. You'd be surprised at how many screw ups I have. But, anyways. The Chicago Bears lose a tough one on the road in Indianapolis, falling 16 to 21 in a game that kind of felt close, also felt sometimes The Chicago Bears fall to the Indianapolis Colts 16-21 in a dogfight that went against Chicago and the late ends of the game. This felt like a roller coaster to walk through, especially given horrible offense early, defense you wanted a little more out of late, but Nick's not here with me today, so all you get is me. We'll keep it nice and tight on this postgame, talk through all the ups, all the downs, and everything in between on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Us. I'm your host, Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of The Bears Blog, and normally I'm joined by my co-host, Nick Whalen of Football Guys, but he's on the road, so he'll catch us sometime later in the week as we talk through this game. And what a game we have to talk about. Caleb Williams throws 52 times, which was not something I doubt, or I'm sure anybody thought would happen in his rookie season. He completes a bunch of passes. I don't have the stats in front of me, for about 363 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a sack fumble in an offense that outside of Caleb Williams was only able to generate 55 yards rushing on 27 carries. Then across from him, we have the Colts, who managed about 150 yards passing, 2 of the worst interceptions I've seen in an awfully long time, and they ran the ball well enough down the backstretch of the game to click out 21 points and a Bears loss. So, walking through this game, how do I feel? A little confused, if I can be honest with you. Down the late stretch of the game, when the Bears needed him to deliver, Caleb Williams seemed to deliver. So did Roma Dunze. They finally hit a deep shot. A lot of the big questions that I think people had about Caleb, about like, okay, how do we feel about his deep accuracy? Well, his deep accuracy looked fine to me today. Did he look did he look a tick late on some of his plays? Definitely, but that's pretty rookie quarterback if you ask me. We have a couple defensive pass interferences, especially to open the game, and we avoided the middle of the field early on. Also took a couple of sacks that I would love to not take, but I never know what's going on with sacks until I watch the All-22. Still, for now, let's go ahead and pin those on Caleb, just to be fair to the most doubtful person in the room, right? Caleb Williams also tests a window that he should never test again in his life. Every NFL quarterback has to learn eventually that you can't throw to the flat late. And here, that's exactly what Caleb did. He was lucky that didn't get run down the sideline for a pick 6. And then instead, I think it's Jalen Jones, the other one, right? Not the Bears player, but the corner from Texas A&M. Just got drafted the other day. He picks off a pass after I taunted him on Bear With Us and shows me what for, apparently. Still, the Bears offense could not find a way to get up or down the field until I started throwing the ball ad nauseum, and Cairo Santos doesn't have enough leg on a 56-yard field goal to put the Bears on the board early, so we go into the dogfight, where the Colts or the Bears can't seem to move the ball. The Colts in part because Anthony Richardson is just not an accurate quarterback. I'd love to say something less direct or less blunt, but we had multiple wide open opportunities that you could just feel where the Colts quarterback simply couldn't hit the target. And one where he floats the ball so badly over Michael Pittman that it lands in the hands of Jalen Johnson in the early parts of the second half. So you get a great day as far as what you could ask for from the opposing quarterback across from you, and the Bears defense ultimately allows 21 points. It's just a little too much, but it's 7-0 for the early part of the half. I do want to talk about one part of this game that I don't know if it's going to get much shine. I thought that call me a Bears homer. You can. But I thought that call that went against the Bears early with Andrew Billings and Montez Sweat holding up Anthony Richardson, and then Anthony basically getting hit from behind as the ball pops forward and lands in number 97's hands. I am shocked they called that forward progress. I mean, shocked. Whether it's Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, in this case, it was obviously Anthony Richardson. I've seen it so rare for ball-carrying quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks that look like they are breaking from the grasp of the tackler that is holding on to them. I've just never seen that called forward progress. Anthony looked like he was getting out of it. He did get out of it. He stepped aside and then got hit again. So the fact that they called that down just shocked me, especially when then later in the game, we saw a stack up at the goal line where the Bears defense collided with the entire Colts offense, trying to push Trey Sermon into the end zone, and Sermon was allowed to continue to go backwards and then surge forwards. But whatever, right? I guess forward progress will count when we want it to count, and certainly we've got to protect our quarterbacks. Hopefully Caleb Williams gets a little of the same. But That's just all cope. Past a certain point, if I could be blunt with you guys, the Bears had their opportunities to make plays. We did not see the team live up to those opportunities. Obviously, when the Bears finally get the offense rolling a little, big deep shot to Rome Odunze, which good job on Rome for making sure he arrived at the ball exactly in time. I need to go watch it again to see if there's any late hands or anything, it's going to blow up on social media about it. But either way, a long, deep catch for Rome Odunze, Caleb to Rome, that's just fun to see, right? The offense finally gets to the point where they're at about first and goal at the 5, and we all saw it. They line up in the shotgun. Run number 1, 2 yards. Okay, I guess. Run number 2, 2 more yards. 3rd and 1. Run number 3, get nothing from it. All this from the shotgun, of course. And then 4th down and goal, you go with a sprint out that in pressers we've seen everybody say, by everybody I mean Eberflus, Shane Waldron, did not talk, but we heard about him through Caleb Williams, who talked, and then now Coleman Shelton also mentioned something. Apparently, the Bears have been practicing this option all week. It went way against the Bears, and in an opportunity where the Bears could have at least gone into halftime down 3-7, or 3-7, or maybe even 7-7. I'm not trying to hate on the gumption. I'm sure everybody loved the fact that the Bears were going for it. There was a conservative part of me that thought maybe you take the points, but that's just second guessing in hindsight. I want to just be blunt about that. But that call at that time feels ridiculous and was unfortunately indicative of just how poorly the Bears were able to run the ball when they wanted to. The Colts yawned open nearly all game. If you wanted to run up between the tackles, all you had to do was move Grover Stewart. There was plenty of room there, especially if you could get to the second level. The Bears were unable to capitalize on any of that as they end up running for, as a team, about 2 yards a carry. And let's not forget that most of that was Roshan Johnson, who clicked out 3.8 yards per carry for most of the day. It's tough talking about this game because I know there are plenty of people that want to assess whether Caleb was amazing. Obviously, he has more passing yards than any Bears rookie has ever had in a single game, and the 11th most passing yards of a Chicago Bears quarterback ever. And you did hear that right, unfortunately. But to call this a great game from Caleb Williams is, I think, kind of seeing what you want to see. This is a Rorschach test, if you will. I liked a lot of the context of what Caleb was able to do, but he had an awful lot of dropbacks to do it. With 52 dropbacks, you're going to have some sweet plays on 3rd down. You got 2 plays, one called back from a holding, where Caleb broke out of the pocket and did exactly what we saw at USC, slinging the ball back across the middle of the field while on a full sprint. And those are sweet plays that, gosh, you just get a couple more of those if Caleb sees the field that much better as he gains NFL experience. And the offense should be able to move really healthily down the field. But at the same time, when I'm talking about Caleb Williams' game, talking within the context of a game plan where you just about lit 27 downs on fire with that kind of running game, did not have any reliable way to move the ball outside of your passing game. Suddenly, all of the miscommunications, like we saw multiple screen passes where Caleb and the running back or the receiver involved just didn't know where the other wanted them to be. Was that Caleb? Was that DJ Moore? Was that DeAndre Swift? I truly don't know. And we wouldn't know unless somehow we were inside the coaching room with them. But you saw these miscommunications pile up, leading to a truly historically bad efficiency on 2nd down per Robert Mays. The Bears, after this game, trailed only the Carolina Panthers. Not trailed, actually. They led the league in the least amount of 2nd downs converted into a 1st down, with about 8.5% of their 2nd downs being converted into a 1st down. I want you to really stew on that, by the way. NFL, let's call it average, 3rd down conversion rate hovers between about 35% and usually 45%. It's not like I'm staring at the numbers right now, but generally whenever I've looked it up, that's around where things sit. And the Bears are sitting at a below 10% 2nd down to 1st down ratio, and the 31st worst team in the NFL, the Panthers, up until today, I'm sure, were sitting at about 18.5%. So you could double the Bears figure, and I don't think they wouldn't pass the Panthers number. That's how poor the Bears have been on 2nd down. Now on 3rd down, Caleb's doing some things that are solid, and I think that's something to look forward to. But the moment I really start thinking through this offensive plan, the more I just feel like it's a failure on the staff and a failure on a lot of the supporting cast, I guess, to provide anything that we could grade any quarterback within. I wouldn't consider this fair for Justin Fields, at least not until maybe his third season. I wouldn't consider this fair for Mitch Trubisky either until, again, you hit a point where your quarterback's supposed to be elevating. This is his third start, his second start on the road. And I think it's encouraging that he did a lot of what he did. He didn't seem to wilt the way that I think he did late in the, I can't remember if it was the Titans game or the Texans game. And God knows I'm not trying to talk about mental things like who wilted, who didn't. But I thought Caleb looked poised, was a leader. That's nice. But it's all window painting for a Bears loss that feels like it was right within their grasp. I mean, whether the offense just makes a couple more plays, whether the defense just makes a couple more plays, you had this game in your hands. The schedule doesn't get any easier. I mean, even as we look down the barrel of what was supposed to be a much more fun Rams game than it's looking like, it doesn't look as fun anymore as they've been feisty with the San Francisco 49ers. Then you look a little further. Andy Dalton and this Dave Canellis Panthers team are playing some ball, smoking a Raiders team, at least right now as I record this, that just beat the Ravens, and the Ravens are running all over the Dallas Cowboys, who beat the Browns. You get it. There's NFL parity, and it feels as if every team can beat just about every other team in the NFL any given Sunday. You've heard it before, and yet somehow the Bears feel fairly predictable. The Titans, their one win, fall pretty flat against a Packers team that does not have their starting quarterback, but the Bears will likely not be so lucky, and if they are, there's a point, isn't there? This may be the most emotional thing that you guys have heard me say on this podcast, but I am starting to wonder if there's a point where the Bears are so hard capped by their coaching staff, who burned a timeout because apparently we just weren't ready for the Bears to finally throw a touchdown. I mean, what happened? We've got Adam Johns out here, who I think does great work, legitimately speculating that Caleb and Rome interacting over who gets to keep the football may have created a time or a necessary timeout. And then they hard cut to Matt Eberflus, and he looks lost on the sidelines. He sends on the field goal unit. You could see him point the finger for one, which is to say extra point, and then bang, the other way, or like we need a timeout so that we can go for a 2-point conversion that frankly, Caleb should have been calling the moment that it got, or the moment that they scored. Or at least that's generally what I've seen. Whether it's any other quarterback in the NFL, you go back a little further, whether it's Jay Cutler, Andy Dalton, Nick Foles, you see pretty much any veteran quarterback immediately call for the 2-point conversion in a situation like that. Sure, maybe the rookie gets a handle on it and has it, but also the Bucs got to stop somewhere, and one more timeout would have been the difference between the Bears potentially getting a chance to try to score a game-winning touchdown with 40 seconds left and not. Every one of those timeouts matters. All the little mistakes matter. Jumping off sides on 4th and 2 matters. Being unable to cash in on a gift of a roughing the passer penalty matters. Not being able to get any points off turnovers matters. And I'm all for giving Matt Eberflus every chance we can. You and I, whoever's listening to this podcast, we don't have any control over this. So we've got a long season with Eberflus either way, but the glow up and the new beard and the new stylist, that all starts to feel a little thin when on Sundays you feel like you get exactly the performance that you would have hoped for out of Anthony Richardson. You get a pretty, at least workable performance from Caleb Williams, at least workable. I think he gave you plenty to work with. Maybe you disagree, and you find a way to lose regardless. I think that's tough. Jonathan Taylor has himself a very good day running the ball, as he, against a Bears front that's been able to just about shut the door on everybody else, was able to run for 110 yards on 23 carries with 2 touchdowns. Alec Pierce is the receiving leader for the Indianapolis Colts, and he gets hilariously open, even though the Bears are sitting in what you would hope would be a shell that keeps the Colts from doing the only thing that you know they'll do, which is throw the ball downfield. He breaks loose anyways, and I'm frankly almost surprised he didn't score. Tyreek Stevenson and Andrew Billings get banged up in this game at different points, both come back into the game, but it is all for naught as the Colts are able to grind out a win that keeps them from the dregs of 0-3, but puts the Bears right back in the crosshairs of what is this season going to look like? And if there's a point where I'm most glad that I don't have Nick on here, Nick, I love him so much. Nick, you are the best co host that I could have asked for on a podcast like this. But you live in Wisconsin. You need the Bears to be good. And I don't blame you for looking at the Bears in a situation like this and saying what most fans will. It's a long season. It's a young team led by a rookie quarterback. If they get to December and they look better, plenty can happen. Don't you remember how the Bears started last year? And in general, I agree. But any prediction that I made early in the season, especially before the season, of a potential 10-7 season, relied on winning a couple of these games early. And that means that the Bears need to play better football, or else they're probably not coming out, or probably not getting to the Packers game at 6-3, certainly not 7-2. I would just be surprised. But I don't know if 5-4 is in the cards. I don't know if 4-5 is in the cards. But with the Vikings looking the way that they are, this division is looking, frankly, tougher than the already tough expected division. And I don't know. I don't know what that means. The question that I would start asking yourself, okay, so here's my emoji question, right? And this may sound dark. This may sound doomer, okay? So just bear with me. Get it? But I want to know, if the Bears finish 7-10, what will you be wanting? If the Bear, or where is your water line? And then give me a pumpkin emoji, because I love that pumpkin emoji. Give me a water line. Is 8-9 where you draw the line? You say they have to be 8-9, or else I need something to change. Do they have to be at least 7-10, or you need something to change? Is 6-11 good enough? Do they have to be 9-8? Do they have to be 10-7? What is your expectation when you look at this Bears team and you say this many wins or something needs to change? Because a game like this felt to me like if you gave the same Bears roster to Sean McVay, or if you gave the same Bears roster to Kyle Shanahan, the same Bears roster to Matt LaFleur, yeah, it may feel like I'm cheating that I just named a couple of them, or a couple of the best coaches in the NFL. So let's switch things up. If you gave the same roster to Ben Johnson, or the same roster to Kevin O'Connell, or to Dan Campbell, or to Brian Flores, or other coaches that are just in your division right now, do you think that they would have lost to the Colts team that played the way they did today? Because I really don't know. I feel like that was a game for the taking. I feel like that was a game that ends up looking like a missed opportunity. And maybe one day we'll look back and we'll say, yeah, it's part of the process with fond memories, because that was the first time Caleb threw for over 300 yards. That's something that I believe Fields only did one time. If not, he did it twice. Mitch Trubisky obviously did not have like a ton of 300-yard games. I know that in week 3, it becomes the earliest I've seen a Bears rookie quarterback have a multi-touchdown game. And that's in the recent slew of rookie quarterbacks. So you may not count it. But, and also I'd actually need to go back and look and see if Tyson Bagent had a multi-touchdown or a multi-passing touchdown game any sooner. But it's encouraging after a 93-yard game and an 175-yard game to see Caleb Williams. I really don't care what you think about whether or not I actually, you know what? I've heard a couple people mention garbage time. Garbage time is guided by win probability, in my opinion, where when you're below about 5% win percentage, you're probably in garbage time. But this was not that. The Bears were down scores, sure, but I don't think that there's ever any point where you're in garbage time when a score, a stop, and a score would give you a win or a chance to win. And if the Bears had stopped, which, ifs and buts, but if the Bears had stopped Jonathan Taylor on the run that ended up becoming the 13-yard run that iced the game for the Colts, the Bears had a shot at trying to get into the end zone with 80 seconds. Things like that happen every Sunday in the NFL, and we just saw something similar with the Falcons against the Eagles. So seeing Caleb Williams throw for what I believe is one of the highest yardage, total raw yardage passing performances in the NFL this season, given again, he threw it way too many times, I don't know how you don't see that as encouraging, especially given where we have been. But I also think if you're mad and you're looking to vent, then I understand, because this is a frustrating Bears team. And frankly, the cyclical nature of these Bears teams is even more frustrating than the result itself. Somehow, you knew this Bears team. I don't know. Maybe this is how I feel. Maybe you don't feel this way, but somehow you knew the Bears team was going to find a way to leave you uninspired on a day like today. I knew it all week. I kept joking with friends. I'm ready. I'm ready to score 9 points and get mad about it. But instead, they score 16. I guess we take our small victories somewhere. But somehow, the Bears have a quarterback, a rookie quarterback, that throws for 363 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then you add the rest of the context. You find out they lost. You find out he turned it over 3 times. You find out that the running game couldn't move the ball at all. Defense is hard to watch, I think, well, at least in real time, but it did feel like the Bears' zone coverages left all kinds of guys open, some deep, some underneath, and that Anthony Richardson, when throwing the ball, just missed them, and that the opportunities were there. Then when they ran the ball, the Bears didn't have much that they could do about it, and that's the formerly 0-2, now 1-2 Colts. So, what is the rest of the year going to look like? Are the Bears going to be able to go toe to toe with teams like the Cardinals and I mean, for honestly, this is like, forget the Seahawks, right? Forget the 49ers. Are the Bears going to be able to go toe to toe with the Patriots? Your guess is as good as mine. And I guess we'll find out when we'll find out, won't we? That's what the games are for. But at least right now, if you asked me to dipstick things, I am worried about the direction of the future. I think that complaining about Shane Waldron is well, allowed. I've seen some people ask, should we be worried? I really don't know how you wouldn't be worried. I hope I didn't say this in the 20 minutes that I've been ranting, but the moment that in week 3 we can't get more than 55 yards on the ground game, therefore the only sensible decision is to abandon the run game and leave our rookie quarterback in a position where he needs to rescue our team, I think that you've failed as an offensive coordinator. I think it doesn't matter who's injured and how they're injured. You look at Sean Payton and Bo Nix running, like smashing. Can't remember who they faced today. I just saw that they won. The Buccaneers. They beat a Buccaneers team that's been smacking everybody, at least right now. Maybe the Bucs had a bunch of injuries that I'm not aware of, but it felt like Caleb Williams ended up left out on an island, and I guess he performed decently given that he was left out on an island, but I don't really like leaving your rookie quarterback on an island, and I don't feel like that was what Shane Waldron was hired to do. I think it's well worth asking questions about Chris Morgan, the Bears' offensive line coach and run game coordinator, because this run game looks about as bad as some of the worst Nagy years, and those teams couldn't run the ball at all. So I don't know what to talk about sometimes when it comes to this Bears team, because everybody has wanted to make it about the quarterback since 2017, since 2018. We want to make everything about the quarterback. You could even argue that we did it to some degree with Fields. He goes to the Steelers, and even though, I mean, he's playing much cleaner football past a certain point, is it the jersey? Is it the organization? If Ryan Poles fully intends to break the cycle, I would love for him to prove it. I don't know what that means. I'm not asking for something outrageously knee-jerk, but performances like today just can't be a part of it unless there's some massive surge in December and the Bears become a team that's more than who we thought they were. But this Bears team is who we should have thought they were, because it's who they've always been. And it's week 3. You don't need to be super doomery. They were 0-4 last year, so I guess 1-2 is better than 0-3. And if this is our Broncos game, then okay, at least something better is coming, I guess. But I don't know. It is hard for me to look at a defense-led team getting a performance like that from Anthony Richardson that gives up that much on the ground when you know the ground is just about all they got. I mean, when the Bears knew the ground was all the Colts had, they managed to get a stop. And then they got another stop, which turned into a long drive. Then, sudden change, they allow a touchdown. I don't know. It's not the defense's fault, kind of. But football's a team game. I would have loved for Cairo to hit one more to hit that 56-yard field goal. I would have loved for our kicker to have 65 yards of leg to at least attempt the ball that ends up being the Hail Mary that pads Caleb's stats a little bit. You strip out the Hail Mary, he still throws for 300 yards in an offensive ecosystem right now where the NFL in general is not seeing explosive offenses left, right, and center, but it feels like small beans past a certain point. You either win the game or you lose the game. And if you lose the game, people get mad. And if you win the game, people manage one way or another. The Bears lost this game. So all of the box score statistics, all of the passer ratings, all of the targets, all of the tweets, they all end up, you know, bummers. So I don't really know what to tell you. I really don't. But I don't think we needed to do anything other than potentially adjust our expectations on what this Bears season is going to be. I'm not stoked about that either. To be honest with you, I'm telling you that because I think it's the truth, not because I like it. And what I've tried to do on this channel since day one is be real with y'all. And if Nick was here, I would challenge him on if he was saying anything about this Bears team potentially still finding a way to be 10-7, because if they're going to be, they're going to need to quickly find a way to rise to the level of better teams that exist in our own division right now. If the Bears go 1-5 in the division, I would say that that's about right. And if they go 0-6, I'd say I'm not shocked. And that's not good. Nobody's going to have a good record if you're 0-6. So if this sounds unbelievably negative, I guess I apologize, but I think that's the case. Right now, they need major steps forward from either defensive or offensive personnel, ideally offensive. But the good news is, I think their young quarterback gave them something to build off of. I think their young receiver looks very good. In a podcast like this, I didn't get enough time to talk about Roma Dunze and how the separation that we saw from last season, or not last season, last week, turned into production today. Caleb Williams said in his presser after the game that he walked into today with a focus on trying to get Rome the ball more, and he did. And I thought Rome actually looked the part. There's a couple of circumstances where Rome's still making rookie mental mistakes that I think can get better, but those will best be discussed in the film review on Tuesday night. The more important thing is that Rome is looking like the kind of player that can be worth that number 9 overall pick. And if he's there and DJ Moore finds a major functional point to be used in the offense, and Cole Kmet can produce just like we saw him today, because he was a darn near a hero on third down, including that third down where he ends up tripped up. The Bears have to go for it on fourth down, and I frankly thought Cole got it the first time, at least when I watched it live. But I think that all of that is looking towards the future and requires some perspective, because kind of implies that, yes, we're looking towards later in the season to potentially score some points, but it also means that we're accepting the offensive line is what it is, which is not super great. I wouldn't be surprised if Darnell Wright looks good on film review. It's not like I think he had some incredible game as a run blocker, but the Bears threw it 52 times, and I didn't see any pressure come from the right tackle. But I don't know. Offensive line's always tough to watch live. Tevin Jenkins is playing okay football. I did not love the way that he gave up the first sack of the game, but it's hard to know whether anybody was open downfield. I hope Braxton, I don't know. Talking about the linemen independently is particularly tough in a game like this because they threw it 52 times, for crying out loud. They dropped back 56. So, messy game that the Bears almost found a way to win, but they didn't. And a Colts team that needed a win gets a win, and a Bears team that may have needed a win more than we would like to admit doesn't get one. What does that mean for next week? As the Bears welcome the Rams and Caleb Williams walks back into Soldier Field for his second start, or for his second home start. What does it mean for the rest of the season? What is any, or where is this team going? What should we expect of them? What does George McCaskey expect of them? What does Ryan Poles expect of them? I don't know. There are questions that I'm dying to have answers to, but we won't get any answers now. I'm excited to talk through this game again on Tuesday, but until that time, if you enjoyed this podcast, let me know. Thank you for putting up with me just ranting by myself. I know it's probably a little roundabout and a little confusing. Everything's a lot easier with an outline and a partner to go back and forth on, but got you something, which is all I can hope to do. You guys enjoy yourselves, have fun this Sunday, Monday, etc. Hang tough, bear down, and thanks so much for bearing with me. I'll take a couple more questions as a couple of these things, or as a couple games end, but we'll get there. Let's see. Caleb threw for more yards in his third game ever as a pro than Jordan Love has thrown in a year 4 quarterback. So Gates 11 says, screw the wins. Just need Caleb not to crumble. Rex Smith says, I'm already for firing Morgan. Flus needs 9 wins. It's year 3. He's like 11-26. Obvious Troll says, I think even if you go 10-7, Eberflus needs to go. I don't think that'll happen, but I hear you. Jay Sanders mentions, should Caleb be incorporated in the run game? Personally, Jay, I hope not, but that's because I hate watching the quarterback get hit. And so it's messy when you talk about getting the quarterback involved in the run game, but that's just me not enjoying that type of football. There are other people that love that kind of football. I am not one of them. But Gates 11 mentions, yeah, he threw the ball 56 times, so 300 yards minus the Hail Mary, not that good, TBH. That's the thing, Gates. It really reminds me of a Joe Burrow performance that I saw people laud for 300 yards in 60 throws, but that's rookie quarterbacking for you, especially when your running game isn't good enough to open any seams on play action, and you can't get any of those, I don't want to call it free yards, but any of the nice yards that you're able to get when your offense is any more like efficient and productive. And yeah, no kidding. Jordan mentions this Rams team, and Sean McVay and this Rams team are suddenly looking awfully tough despite having an entire offense sitting on IR. They're finding a way, which is just grand, isn't it? I mean, if the Bears lose to, here's my question, okay, Bears fans? So let's say that the Bears did beat, or we know they beat the Titans. That's obvious, okay? So let's say, call me a doomcaster. Hang in there. I just want to know your reaction. The Bears lose the Rams. They get beat by the Panthers. They go to London. They lose. They get a bye. They come back. They beat the Commanders. Then they play Arizona. I believe they play in Arizona. They lose. They beat the Patriots. And then they lose to the Packers. So now they're 3-6. What's their record? And what do you think? Because I'll tell you, none of that sounds too ridiculous. At least the form that the Bears are in right now, I don't think the defense is good enough to change that many of those. Like, hopefully they put Stafford with limited weapons and hopefully they put Stafford with limited weapons and Dalton with limited weapons in hell. But you can't know that. I mean, you don't know. But so then at that point, are the Bears a 3-win team? Because yikes. I mean, it would fit the bill of being of a former first overall pick, but yikes. I mean, like, I don't know what you do at that point. I am going to tell you right now one other thing that I don't love. Okay, here's another question. Let's say the Bears win 5 total games. Okay? Let's say. At what point, despite how much I love him, I don't know. I have no idea. I could sit here and I could beg the question on, like, do you have to ask a question about Poles at some point? I like Poles. I think Poles has managed this thing decently, like fairly well. I like a lot of what he's tried to do, but he's stuck with Flus at a critical juncture, and here we are. And so if this doesn't work, who holds that? Is it Matt Eberflus? If we're firing Matt Eberflus, then at what point, given the opportunity you had to let go of Matt Eberflus last year, does he not have to just own that? I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, because the more that I look back, if I can just be briefly emotional with you, somebody in Twitter mentions be more negative, I dare you. And I'm sitting here like, I feel like this is pretty reasonable. This probably all sounds very doomery, but y'all, this Colts team is not very good. I mean, not only did Malik Willis smoke them in his first game back, but Anthony Richardson looked awful today. Like, the more that I sit and stew on this game in as clear-minded a fashion as possible, the Bears gave up more scores when the offense went one-dimensional, like in Indianapolis, like the Indianapolis offense went one-dimensional, than they gave up when their offense was two-dimensional, which is, in my opinion, that's sort of a death knell. Like, I have a real issue watching that and seeing something that we can build off of. I'm with you I'm with Cole World on what he says. The positive is that Caleb looked decent. Rome finally showed up. Kmet looks good. I agree. I can cite all those positives for sure. But how do you get that kind of a performance from Cole Kmet? That kind of a performance from that kind of a performance from Rome Odunze, and enough for blah 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 blah. I'm just really struggling. I'm an analyst that's been pretty positive for an awfully long time, and generally that doesn't work out well for the Bears, does it? And I'm looking at this Bears team and I'm seeing every other team in the NFL rise to an occasion and not Chicago. Let's be honest, because this one breaks my heart, okay? Our crowning thing was that the Bears lost a tight game to the Texans. And we said, well, the Texans are a potential Super Bowl favorite. What are you going to do? Did they look like that this week? Or did they look like a team that's played the Colts and the Bears? Because I think they looked like a team that played the Colts and the Bears against the Vikings, for crying out loud. So now we've got a win over a team that cannot buy itself into a decent position. We've got a one-score loss, but a 6-point loss to a team that looks fine. Pretty good, but maybe not what it was. Then you've got a one-score loss to a team that played around its quarterback. And now you're going up against two coaches that might be legit good. What now? Do you hope to, if you lose the next two games, if you're 1-4, then what? But I don't know. I'm right there with Roma Dunze mentions in my chat, like, we're here to bench Swift, and I think that's tough. Like, not that I think benching Swift is a hard decision. It's not a hard decision. But I also think that it's sad that here we are looking at what was supposed to be a game-changing free agent. And, I mean, we watched the tape. We were like, I guess I could get excited about some of this. But there's not been anything fun about this tape. I mean, especially now that we've seen this. Wow, the Rams are going to bring it all the way back. I don't know. To be honest with you guys, if I was